London airport waited Major General Georges Vanier, Canadian High Commissioner to the Allied governments, Air Marshal Baldwin, Major General the Honorable P.J. Montigue, and Lieutenant S.B. Ralston. They were waiting for the plane bringing the Minister of National Defense, Colonel the Honorable J.L. Ralston, on another of his flying visits to the Canadian Army in England. He was greeted by the official party, including the Right Honorable Vincent Massey and Lieutenant General Kenneth Stuart, C.G.S., after which he inspected a guard of honor drawn from the R.A.F. regiment. Accompanied by Major General C.R.S. Steen, the minister inspected a guard of honor from the Lorne Scots as he began his visit to Canada's armored formations. At the 11th Canadian Infantry Brigade, he was greeted by Brigadier H sharp and found 3 units drawn up for his inspection. They were the Perth Regiment, the Cape Breton Highlanders, and the Irish Regiment of Canada. To finish up, he had a typically informal chat with the whole brigade. At 5th Division headquarters, he inspected a guard of honor from the 3rd Reconnaissance Regiment and met officers of the divisional staff. With Brigadier R.R.G. Morton, he saw a great concentration of artillery, including the 8th, the 17th Field Regiments, and the 4th Anti-Tank Regiment, and the 5th Light Anti-Aircraft Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery. The minister went mobile when he visited the 5th Armoured Brigade and saw some of the punch packed by a Canadian Armoured Division. His inspection included the 2nd, 5th, and 9th Armoured Regiments and the Westminster Motor Regiment. Major General F.F. Worthington met the minister when he visited the 4th Armoured Division and saw the newly arrived Algonquin Regiment at work, and talked to anti-aircraft crews at cleverly camouflaged gun sites. Divisional gunners staged a demonstration shoot, manhandling their guns into position over difficult ground. When getting down to fundamentals, the minister climbed into a tank man's zoot suit for a personal inspection. And when he hurried back to join the Allied discussions at Quebec, he knew that the rest of the Canadian Army is just as ready for battle as was the 1st Division. On the left flank, the Americans had taken Marsala and Trapani and were turning along the northern coastal road. On the right, the British were edging towards Catania, looking for a soft spot in the powerful Axis defense line. In the center, the Canadians took a deep breath after capturing Osoro and prepared for their big swing to the east and Mount Etna. But first there was Leonforte, an important road junction in the center of the island. Canadian tanks were brought up in strength, and the infantry moved into position. The town stands at the head of a rocky defile where the valley narrows, and heavy German mortar fire was brought to bear on the approaches. But Canadian guns and heavy mortars laid a deadly barrage to clear the way for the tanks and infantry. Under this heavy pounding, the German defenses crumpled, and Canadian troops stormed into the town. Before the town was taken, there was hand-to-hand fighting in the streets. Machine gun posts and snipers were cleared out at the bayonet point. The damage done by the bombardment was terrific. After Leonporte, there was work to be done. Damaged guns and vehicles and equipment had to be put back into shape. Adjira was the next objective, and preparations were made for an artillery shoot in the grand tradition of Alamein and Aguila. It started before daybreak, and the night was made bright by 100 guns. Daylight brought no relief. With deadly accuracy, the gunners hurled death and destruction across the valley, smashing the German positions. A commanding hilltop made an excellent observation point from which to direct the fire, and also for Sergeant Cameraman Jimmy Campbell to do a little shooting on his own. Of the enemy's resistance was broken by the merciless barrage. Canadians moved into yet another town, while pulverized elements of the famous 15th Panzer Division moved out. Adjira was one of the main keys to the Germans' Etna defense line, and its capture made possible the final breakthrough later on. The town had to be cleared street by street and house by house. German snipers were at a considerable disadvantage because the Sicilians treated the whole thing as a game and pointed out German positions to the Canadian patrols. Engineers were soon at work clearing up the town so that military traffic could pass through to the front. And after the pounding that Adjira had taken from Canadian guns and RAF bombs, cleaning up was a real job. Moving forward again, as the Canadians pressed swiftly towards Regalbuto and Adrano. The way was littered with smashed German and Italian equipment, while the inevitable herds of prisoners flooded to the rear. And as the Canadians reached the end of the first chapter in the liberation of Europe, the townsfolk of Adjira heard the pipes of the Seaforths of Canada. For the first time in the present war, the traditional ceremony of retreat was carried out by Canadian troops in an occupied town. And it won't be long until the same mad music of the pipes is heard in many another town in a Europe freed of the Nazi tyranny.